So this happened in 2013. This kid named Johnny moved in next door to me when he was around 12. And for lack of a better term, this kid was pretty much a pussy. I remember one time he fell on his skateboard and didn't land hard at all, and was crying his little heart out in my driveway when he was like 16. So fast forward to when this kid is 18. By then, I'm selling coke and Molly pretty heavily, and he's one of my best customers. By now, he's hanging with some pretty shady people, which my parents obviously aren't fans of. My parents also didn't know I was ever selling anything because, well, I was pretty good at keeping it under wraps. Johnny was clearly a follower. He went from the skater/emo type to some wannabe thug, which, frankly, he just wasn't built for. So, my parents go to the Outer Banks, North Carolina, every year for 2 weeks, and ask if I'll come stay at the house while they are gone. I was excited about this, because their house is much better than the shitty little one-bedroom apartment I had at the time. So, everything was going fine at the house. I had my on and off again girlfriend over all the time, and there was quite a bit of drugs and alcohol going on. I was far from a saint back then. I'll never forget it. It was a Thursday night. My girl had left a few hours ago. I should say earlier that day that Johnny had seen me out front of my parents' place and asked for a front. I told him no, considering I never fronted anyone and, in all honesty, had been using too much of my own shit, so couldn't really afford to. He didn't like that very much, and we got in an argument and I pretty much punked him in front of all his little friends. By now, it's like 2 a.m. and I'm obviously nowhere near tired because of all the coke and Molly. I'm sitting in the dark watching Netflix in this den side living room thing my parents had in the downstairs, which has a window going outside that I had open. I had paused the TV and was on my phone texting and on Facebook when I hear something. It's the screen of my window slowly being slid up. I know the sound. I had snuck in and out of this house numerous times growing up. So I slowly get up and watch the window. I clearly see the screen moving very slowly up through the curtains. So, I walk up to the window, and as soon as I move the curtain, at least 3 or 4 people scatter. I run out front, but they're booking it down the street. I knew it was that Johnny kid and his friends. I didn't see them, but I just knew it was those shitheads. I didn't call the cops or anything, because I wasn't exactly living on the right side of the law. So I just go back in and lock everything up, and the rest of the week goes smooth. I never told my parents about it, and I also never saw Johnny again. I called him a few times, but he never answered. I even offered to front him, which was bullshit. I just wanted to see him. But he didn't reply, which was all the more reason to know it was him. And he knew that I knew. So like a month goes by and I'm watching the news and Johnny is on it for murder, which blows my mind. Him and 3 of his friends went out of town, broke into some old couple's home, beat them, tied them up, and then stabbed them to death. Then they burnt the house down after robbing it. They all ended up telling on each other, and he got sentenced to 35 years for testifying against his co-defendants. Makes me wonder if I had been asleep when they got in, what they would have done. So, weird kid who used to live next door to me, after you're done serving 35 years, let's not meet again. Also, on a side note, after he got caught, his mother just abandoned the house they were living in and the bank came and took it. Nobody really knows what happened to her or where she went. I imagine the shame kind of forced her to move. So, I'm gonna start this by saying I was super duper dumb. I've been working for the same company for a few years. Last year, I got suckered into working the weekend around Easter and Good Friday, when most other people requested time off. During the holidays, we pass around non-religious themed candies or gifts, and this was no different. I'm part of our committee that plans holidays, parties, etc., so I decided to pass out some chocolate treats to people who were stuck in the office with me that day. I passed out what I had, and then went to the washroom. I left my main office suite, walked into the hallway, and headed to the restroom. Steps away from opening the door, I hear someone call out. I turn around and see a man that I've never seen in the office. Now, a bit of context. I work in a building with 12 floors. My office is on the 8th floor. You don't need special access or anything to get to the floors, but you do need an RFID card to get into the actual office suite. This man kept calling out, "Hey," to me, and I honestly thought he was talking to someone else, as he did have a Bluetooth in his ear. When we made eye contact, he grinned widely and asked if I worked for my company. I responded yes, and he lit up. He told me he's been working with our company for 25 years in the marketing department, which is not even located in this state. He threw around some names of managers and said he works closely with a different department that sits in a separate suite on my floor, and mentioned some coworkers by name. By this point, I was pretty thrown off. I hate small talk, so I was uncomfortable just being with this person. But his appearance was off-putting. He was very unkempt and didn't seem like he was visiting an office, especially one he didn't see frequently. He was doing the usual banter, how's work going, blah blah blah. He said that those in the office today deserve a medal or a drink. I smiled and said, "I think that's most days," and tried to head to the bathroom. He continued to talk, so I stopped. He replied, "Yeah, or a bong bar in the back." Now, I smoke, so this didn't bother me, but it was very out of place for someone at my company, let alone something to say to someone you don't know. I suppose I should also mention that this man was at least twice my age, so it wasn't like we were both young and looking for new smoking friends or something. This whole interaction was strange up to this point, but then it got a whole lot weirder, and I was super stupid. The guy asked if he wanted some Easter eggs filled with candy that he just happened to have left over. He said he just got finished emptying a bag of them in the other office suite, and if we wanted some, he had more in his truck out front. I honestly tried to say no. First, I told him that we tried to be sensitive to all faiths, and therefore were not just passing out Easter-specific treats. He huffed and said that was no fun. I said that I had just finished passing out some candy and wished him a good weekend. "Come on, get in the holiday spirit. It won't hurt. You're on break, right?" Or something like that. I tried to tell him I was busy, but he pointed out that I had been talking to him for a few minutes, and a few more minutes wouldn't hurt. Defeated, I agreed to go with him to his truck out front. We both got into the elevator, and he continued to push the small talk. I remember sweating a little from being nervous, and I'm sure I must have looked at least a little scared. I was relieved when the elevator doors opened. He led me to his car, which, thankfully, was parked out front. He started cooing at his truck, and before I knew it, he opened the back door and let a dog jump out. So, let's recap. We've got an out-of-place looking dude, offering candy from his truck, who also is driving around with a dog. Dude just ticked every creepy box I could think of, yet I still followed him to his car. He handed me a Walmart bag that had an open bag of plastic Easter eggs pre-filled with candy. He tried to get me to stay and chat about his dog, which I gave a pat on the head and said, I really should be going now, and hightailed it back to the office. I got back and talked to several coworkers. They all chastised me for following this stranger. I agreed that it was super stupid, Even if I could handle myself, and even if he was throwing around familiar names, I shouldn't have gone. I talked to my manager, who instantly knew who I had ran into. She agreed he was an odd bird, but harmless, thank goodness. Still, it was creepy. Like I said, he ticked all the creepy boxes. Actually, I saw him out of the corner of my eye the other day in the same hallway, but he was on his way out. I ignored him and thanked my lucky stars he didn't start another conversation. And, side note, just because I was totally fine and he legit works for the company and he is, as far as I know anyway, harmless, do not do what I did. Don't be polite. Go with your gut and leave the situation.